All right. So, welcome to everyone, wherever you may be watching. My name is Latina, and I'm here with Amitabh, and we're going to be talking about AI and project management. Hopefully, this will be helpful to you. You'll get some really good nuggets of information as you explore AI within your own career. So, the topics that we're going to be centering around are emerging trends. And I'm looking at some notes, so that's why I'm looking up a little bit, talking about some challenges and how some learning possibilities within AI for us. We're going to talk about ethical considerations and how we as humans can collaborate with AI. So we're going to center around that theme. So first, I'm going to have Amitabh go ahead and introduce himself. Tell us who you are and give us a little bit about yourself.
All right, thanks a lot, Latina, for having me here this morning. Um, I am based out of India, Mumbai. It's a very happening city and country. I have been in the domain of GIS and project management plus program management for the last 17, 18 years. I have been lucky. I did had a chance to work with multiple organizations with clients spread all across the globe. And this topic, generative AI plus project management, or some offshoots to program management as well, it is something which I started picking up a few months ago. Since the day I started picking it up, it has been a very, very interesting journey. So can't wait to discuss more, talk more about this wonderful topic.
Right. Yeah, you are in the same position, I think, as a lot of us, having dabbled in it or started to explore it over the past few months. AI has been one of those spaces, generative AI has been one of those spaces that has blown up over the past like year to 2 years, right? And it has evolved since then. So one of the first things I want to ask you is that in your view, what are the most significant emerging trends in the integration of AI in project management, and how do you foresee them impacting the industry in the next 5 years based on what you've experienced so far?
That's a brilliant question to start with, Latina. Let me say that. And let me break down this question into two halves. The first
Mhm.
part being what are the most emerging trends in the recent past, and where do I see the thing, or what kind of the big thing happening in the next 5 years? And mind you, the 5 years, this is usually a term which we use in our career perspective as a long-term perspective, but with the speed with which AI is changing almost everything. This might, the 2 or 3 years might be the new 5 years. You never know. So,
Yeah.
so let me come back to the first part of it, and then what exactly is the recent trend. Very surprisingly, the recent trend, what I have observed, is not technological in nature. It's rather people-centered. November 2022 was the first time when ChatGPT came out. When it came out, nobody was really talking about, for obvious reasons, nobody talked about project management plus ChatGPT or project management plus generative AI. We fast forward 12 months, people are now talking about it. In the last 3 months, I have seen a trend that at least 1 out of 10 to 15 posts, what I see on LinkedIn, has got some element of generative AI, which was unlike 6 to 9 months ago. Not only that, I also see that PMI has introduced a first introductory course. So, and this particular introductory course, which is roughly an hour long, it serves as one of the best starters. And I would say it's a best starter before the main course comes in the due course of time. So, that's the first, I would say, the technological trend which I have been seeing. To answer your second question, well, that's a tough one because the things at the speed at which the processing power is increasing and the amount of technological revolutions which are happening out of generative AI is just immense. But what I firmly believe is a hyper-personalized AI assistant. That is something which I definitely foresee in the next 2 to 3 years, may not have to wait even for 5 years. Now, imagine a hyper-personalized AI assistant customized to me. who understands me, who can assess my knowledge level, who can understand, uh, who can process all of this information and suggest the next best system. Instead of me going to find out what tool works for me, this tool can help me assess my own knowledge, my own context, and then suggest me that, hey, Amitabh, this is the next tool in the market, and this would make absolute sense. And by the way, this is the ROI. I mean, this is the amount of dollars you need to spend, and this would be the ROI that you'll be interested. So this kind of research, somebody who can do it for and then make the things available, in my opinion, that would be next level, but then very much possible in the realm of 2 to 3, 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. A hyper personalized AI assistant. Yeah, that is absolutely possible because you can at this point um, feed ChatGPT, for example, information about you behind the scenes, and it can address you a particular way. So if you flip that to a project management perspective, that is absolutely possible. Yeah, that's great. And another thing I want to highlight that you said that PMI course is kind of like the first step. I took that course as well. So if those of you listening or watching, if you haven't taken that, please check that out. There is a introductory PMI AI course. I may put that in the chat or in the description for those of you that want to check that out. So let's go a little further. So another thing I wanted to ask you, so the scenario is I'm new to using generative AI in project management. What could be two key things I can learn? And what could be two biggest challenges that I might face when I'm diving into this that I could be aware of?
Oh, that was a very factual question. And that reminds me of the quick survey which I did a couple of months ago when I reached out to a few industry veterans, the mid-career professionals, as well as a few newbies, all of them belonging to the domain of project management. I had very interesting insights, like, half of them, and I believe this is the biggest challenge, half of them, they are sitting on the fence. There is a sense of, I would say, that they are still anticipating what's going to come next. At the same time, we still do not have a very well-structured curriculum, which can be used by anybody and everybody. The way, since your audience is mostly project managers and program managers, I would assume that they would understand what is PMP. So the PMP is structure, if you know, it is very well articulated. It has evolved over the period of time. However, irrespective of which part of the world you belong to, you would still to take up the course and understand its in totality. That thing has not yet happened for generative AI and project management. The field itself is evolving, and hence the penetration of this knowledge to each and every human being, to a level where wherever am I right now, I should be able to pick it up and then take it from there. That thing has not happened. And that, in my opinion, is one of the biggest challenges. What we can do to move over or move to the next step, I believe you already gave the answer. The previous point which you were talking about, PMI's course on generative AI, it is one of the very good primary or the first steps, I would say. Not only that, in my opinion, there's another gentleman, Ricardo. He has he has created a course, and in fact, he has done some pioneering work in this overlap, generative AI and project management. So, what Ricardo's course again is for anybody and everybody who is new to this domain. So, both of these things put together, if anybody is looking for a head start, pick these two courses, and in a matter of 2 hours, you should be able to, reach to a certain level where you get exposed to a variety of use cases, how exactly generative AI can be used in project management, lots and lots of examples, and that could be, as I said, a very good point of start that you have. Right.
Yes, I love that. I read a report I accessed a report recently that I believe Ricardo Vargas submitted or contributed to. So, and I have that in my queue to read. And now that you've told me about this course, I'm gonna check that out. And I'll put that in the chat and description too for people to check out. Yeah, I think that's a
Absolutely.
great because he is those of you that those of you that have been PMP for a while know who Ricardo Vargas is. He's given some excellent insight in the project management space. So yeah, that's a great between the two courses, I think that's a great recommendation. Okay. All right. So another question. How do you navigate the ethical considerations and potential biases that come with using AI in project management? Are there any particular guidelines or principles that's coming up for you in this area?
All right. Both of them are very real challenges. And even before I start moving towards either the biases or the ethical considerations, let me tell what things have happened so far with the chat GPT and other generative AI tools coming. It has already proved to the normal world that the processing power and the ability to process humongous amount of data and then still come out with something meaningful has happened. So
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
increase in the processing power is something which has already been proven time and again. At the same time, the two pieces which you specifically talked about, the biases as well as the ethical considerations, are still a few problems which are people trying to find a foolproof solution on how they can come out of these things. So let me begin with the first one. Biases, in my opinion, when I use output of any generative AI tool, so I use Google Bard, Perplexity, and ChatGPT heavily. But when I'm using output of any of these tools, I need to be watchful. At its current state, I would say generative AI in project management is more sort of a teenager. Now, this teenager, he has learned a lot from surroundings and sometimes is overconfident, unfortunately, without knowing. Let me say, it's not useless and do really have some deep knowledge about a certain aspect, but yet, as its parent, it's my responsibility to constantly evaluate its output and make corrections as necessary.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that as you move forward in a couple of years, this teenager would become a young adult, and then reach a certain level of maturity. But that at least at this point of time, I need to be very, very watchful about the biases it inherently carries.
Mhm.
To answer
Yeah.
your second aspect about ethical consideration, it's think of AI as a trusty sidekick, not the superhero itself. Keep a close eye on its what exactly it is doing, and if it is heading into questionable territories, which let me tell it will, not willingly but unknowingly it will, then do not hesitate to step in and then course correct. It's
Mhm.
like having a friend who is sometimes getting carried away. All you need to do is, tap them back into the right territory to operate,
Yeah.
right? So, these are the two things which comes to my mind. One
Yeah.
more thing which I would like to, I'm sorry, one more
No,
thing
no.
I would like to add is uh, when you're talking about usage of generative AI, be cautious when we are trying to, or what we are trying to do is we are trying to use it as an assistant. So when we are trying to use it as an assistant, we need to understand that we have to draw a line and avoid over reliance on it. It's like it's fantastic to calculate 12 into 12 is say 144
Yeah.
on a calculator to speed up my calculation, but it's really bad if I cannot do that math without using the calculator at all. So if it is stepping into the over-reliance territory, then this is something to be watchful about.
That okay. A couple things I'm gonna pick up my PM brain when you called AI like a teenager. That spoke to me like the project or the product life cycle, right? So you have that beginning stage, which is where we are with AI and project management or generative AI, where you are at this point where you're tweaking it, you're adding features, you're iteratively, going through the process. So that's the first thing that popped in my mind when you said that. I think that's a great analogy. Um, And then yeah, using it as an assistant. It's like with anyone else that is assisting you, each of you are you're collaborating with one another. We're going to talk about collaboration in a second. And you're checking each other's work. You're ensuring that everything is the way it should be, that it is ethical, and that you're providing feedback. So I think that's one thing too that I think PMI has PMI in particular has asked for feedback even with their PMI Infinity tool. And I think ChatGPT same way. I mean, they've been asking for feedback. So that great analogies. I love both of those. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Couple things. So we talked about
Absolutely.
ethical considerations. Oh, did
Mhm.
you have anything else?
Just one last point, I
Yeah.
think, when we're talking about using it as an assistant, uh, I would always like to keep that fact in mind that it is an assistant and not the boss.
Yeah.
I would like to keep the reins in my own hand. It's a co-pilot, not the captain. So
Yeah.
it's okay to use it as on an autopilot mode if I want to have a coffee break while flying the plane. But at the
Mhm.
end of the day, if I have to take any strategic decisions, I think human beings, all of us, you and me, we should still keep the decision making of the strategic pieces at least in our hand. It's good for
Yes.
the repetitive task, but not the strategic ones yet. So just to
I
be
completely agree.
watchful
Yes,
about
I
it.
completely agree. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, that's a good segue. So what skills do you believe are essential for a project manager to effectively leverage AI in their work? Um, like
In fact, now
educational
that
institutions and things like that
mhm.
to adapt to it.
That's again a very relevant question. Let me say that thing. And the reason I would say it's relevant because when I was surveying all these ladies and gentlemen about what exactly is prohibiting them to use generative AI in their day-to-day work, a lot of good insights came out. When I synthesize all of those inputs, there are only two things which are super simplistic, and sometimes I believe, is it really that simple? But then so far that is the case. All we need is two things. One, if I'm talking about project management and AI, I should be aware of the domain of project management itself. If I do know the project management, that will enable me to use or harness the amplification power, let me call it that way, amplification power of generative AI.
Mm.
If I do not know how to use if I do not know how to use project management or its tools and techniques and procedures, it's not really going to be that useful. Let me clarify it with an example. If I do know thoroughly what is a communication management plan as a seasoned project manager, if I'm aware of those things, I can use generative AI, ChatGPT, or any of the other tools to simply help me with the template. I
Mhm.
can use generative AI to give me the parameters I should be considering while creating this plan. I can use this to figure out what are the different modes of communication, channels of communication, frequencies of communications, templates of communications, emails or
Yeah.
calls. So all of those things I can ask my assistant or generative AI to give it to me. On the other hand, if I do not know what a communication management plan is, I will be blindly dependent on this assistant. And remember, it's a fantastic assistant. It's a terrible boss. So if I do not know those things, then it's something like I'm shooting in the dark and hoping that it provides me the right answer.
Mm.
If I'm lucky, it works. But if it does not provide the right answers, and again, I'm going back to the previous question when we were talking about the biases. So if it does give me something incorrect, unfortunately, I won't even know about it. And I would
Mm.
simply go ahead, use it, and then fall in the entire trap.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
coming back to the question, the first piece is knowledge of project management itself so that I can utilize it to amplify its power.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
second thing, again, now ChatGPT, I believe it is available in many languages. So all I need to do is be able to understand my own language and have the craft of asking questions. In other words, sometimes people call it prompt engineering, or somebody would call it contextualization. Essentially, what I mean, if I have to create a software management lifecycle for, let me say, creation of a website, So it's very easy to say that, create this a complete project management plan, let me say a project management plan for a creation of a website, which is related with sales. If I give
Mhm.
only this much amount of prompt, it's going to give me a very, very generic project management plan. Mostly it is not going to be useful. But the moment I add more adjectives to it, if I add more contexts to it, I'm talking about which domain, which geography, which part of the entire sales cycle. Do I need to integrate it with any other existing CRMs? All of these informations, when I input, the output of that query is going to be much more relevant for my use case. To summarize, all I would need is one, the knowledge of project management, and two, the art and craft of asking questions
Mhm.
contextually. These
Yeah.
two things.
Yes, I think those are very essential skills because as your experience and knowledge and you become more seasoned in project management, that's going to influence your prompts and that prompt engineering that you're speaking of. It becomes more rich. Yes, that's yeah. Those are I think those are great essential tools. Yep. Okay, a couple of other questions.
Mhm.
We talked about one AI and human collaboration. Excuse me. How do you envision the future of AI collaboration in project management? Like, what role or task do you think would be predominantly handled? I feel like you've answered a portion of this. Um, and what things will remain human centric?
All right. Let me in fact pick the second part first, and or maybe a part of it. When in the previous question we were talking about how, in order to be more impactful, I need to know about project management. So that is one piece for sure, which is going to stay relevant. In fact, that is also one thing for which we should not be fearing generative AI. It's not going to take our jobs away from us because the knowledge of project management, the contextualization is still so human centric. Now, coming back to your question holistically, uh, in my opinion, and I'm sure many of the others would agree to this, the future of human AI collaboration, it looks more sort of a symbiotic in nature. It's going to be one dependent on another. There will be a few segments, a few verticals where AI would rule, or it would really make sense for AI to lead. For example, there could be a few data-driven decisions because AI, as all of us know, it excels at crunching humongous, vast amounts of data, identifying patterns, and predicting risks.
Yeah.
So if I'm using generative AI, I would expect it to handle, or I would say analyze past project trends to optimize resource allocation, predicting future roadblocks, maybe a few identification of the risks, mitigating them, all those kind of things, where there is a heavy dependency on data.
Mhm.
Uh, it could also be used for a lot of repetitive task automation, right? Because if there is something I have to compile a report every week and send it to A, B, and C. It would make a lot of sense to templatize entire piece, templatize or streamline where the inputs would be coming, what kind of output will be generated, and then send out an email instead of a human getting associated with it. So quite a few things where generative AI would definitely take the lead. On the other hand, the pieces where humans would still lead is the strategic decision making.
Mm.
One. Second piece, whenever we are making a decision or we are creating a project, it is for the people, by the people. So the people aspects of it is something which human beings would still lead. It's fantastic to have a very wonderful assistant, but I cannot go out with this assistant on a Friday evening for a beer. So if I need to have some kind of collaboration with the human beings, humans would still take a lead out there.
Yeah.
So quite a few things where the segregation of the things would happen, but eventually the symbiotic relation, in my opinion, will give larger amount of efficiencies as we move forward.
Yes, that strategy decision making is key, taking all things into consideration outside of the project itself is very important and does, like you said, require human interaction as well as, I'm going to be real project managing, the stakeholder engagement that you're mentioning, with regards to being able to have that rapport with the people in the project. AI is the tool or the assistant, but the people in the project, that the results of the project are going to affect people. So that's a great segue. Oh my gosh, I feel like that was a great like capsulation of everything we talked about. But I will ask you one question, which may kind of sum up everything that you just talked about. But the single most impactful advancement in AI for project management so far, what do you think?
That's a tough one
Yeah,
since there are
yeah,
many nuances of this
yeah.
question, and the way this technology has evolved, and then what we are seeing probably is just the tip of the iceberg. Uh, However, if I have to summarize and then pick only one, I would say it's predictive capabilities. Now, we know that there are a few things generative AI can do. At the same time, there are a few things which are still being deliberated upon. What it can do is it's capable of crunching a vast amount of data and synthesize them to form some kind of sensible results, identify patterns, give me some results. Now, while it has figured out solution for this part, there are still a few unknowns. When I say unknowns, we have questions like privacy, transparency, data accuracy, all of those things which we have not completely figured out a solution for. We're still in the middle of that solution finding. In my opinion, once we do figure out a solution for these challenges as well. So now imagine my hyper personalized AI assistant, which I talked
Mhm.
a few minutes ago, and this hyper-personalized AI assistant has all the data related to my organization's projects, practices, tools, procedures. Now, this gets combined with my own ways of working. It can predict my biases. It can predict what could be the risks and potential mitigation, interdependencies, and whatnot. And all of these data points come together. The predictive capabilities of my generative AI would simply be supernatural. And that, in my opinion, is something to be looking out for.
Yeah.
Imagine a world where we are working. Imagine working in a world where majority of otherwise what we call unknowns are already identified. They are reasonably analyzed, and along with all of their possible mitigations, that is going to be a phenomenal year. So that,
Yeah.
in my opinion, Latina is going to be something to be looking out for as we move forward in the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Great. I am excited for the future of project management that includes AI, as I know that you are as well. Amitabh, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate your insight. Like I said earlier on when I started these conversations, I'm exploring AI and looking at how it can improve my ways of working. And having other perspectives in this space is super helpful. So those of you that are watching and listening, I hope this was a helpful conversation. Check out the comments or the description for information for you to further your knowledge. And thanks for listening and thanks for being a part. Thanks, Amitabh. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Latina, for having me here, and I'm sure your audience would definitely learn a lot of this conversation.
All
You
right.
have a nice evening.
You too. Thanks.